For years, bringing a husband, a wife, a parent, or a child to the United States has meant one thing: waiting. Waiting 12 months, waiting 18 months, sometimes waiting more than 2 years just for the very first approval. And during that time, families have missed birthdays, anniversaries, graduations, even the birth of their own children. Entire chapters of life unfold across borders while people sit in front of screens, refreshing case status pages that never seem to change. Spouses try to hold a marriage together through video calls and time zone differences. Children blow out birthday candles with one parent missing. Adult sons and daughters get messages from overseas about a parent's health declining and feel helpless because case is being actively reviewed is the only thing they ever see. But starting in February 2026, something changes. Not a small tweak, not a minor policy memo buried on a government website that no one ever reads. A structural shift in how I-130 petitions are processed, a shift that could cut processing times in half, in some situations, even more than half. For certain families, what once took well over a year could now take just a few months. And for a specific group of cases, there may finally be an option to receive a decision in as little as 15 business days. The obvious questions are: who benefits the most from this? What exactly is changing behind the scenes at USCIS? If you've already filed your petition, will you actually see any advantage? Or is this only for new cases? And here's the part most people aren't talking about. Depending on your category, your filing strategy, and your timing, February 2026 could either accelerate your case dramatically or barely move the needle. In fact, there's one critical decision some families may need to make before these changes fully roll out if they want to get the maximum benefit. So, if you're currently separated from someone you love, or you're just about to begin the family-based immigration process, what you do next could shape your entire timeline. Let's break down exactly what's happening and what it means for your family. Hi, I'm Sophia, and welcome back to Move and Money, where we break down the latest immigration move and money in a way that's clear, practical, and actually useful for your real-life situation. Today's move and money is one of the most genuinely positive shifts we've seen in family-based immigration in years. Starting in February 2026, USCIS is implementing major operational changes to how I-130 petitions, the foundation of family immigration, are processed. If you're a U.S. citizen petitioning for your spouse, a U.S. citizen sponsoring a parent, or an unmarried child under 21, or a green card holder sponsoring close family members, these changes could significantly impact your timeline. In this video, I'm going to walk you through what's actually changing inside USCIS, why these changes are happening now, which categories benefit the most and which do not, what new processing time projections look like in real numbers, how premium processing and expedite options fit into all of this, and, most importantly, the specific actions you should take to position your case to benefit. By the end, you'll be able to look at your own situation and answer: will these changes really help me? Should I wait, or should I file now? Is premium processing worth paying for in my case? So let's start with a basic question. Why does this first step, the I-130, matter so much? Why the I-130 has been such a pain point. To really understand why the February 2026 changes matter, we have to look at what the I-130 process has actually felt like for families over the last several years. The I-130, officially called the Petition for Alien Relative, is the foundation of family-based immigration. It does not grant a green card by itself, give work authorization, allow travel or re-entry by itself. What it does is establish that a real qualifying family relationship exists between a U.S. citizen or lawful permanent resident and the person they're sponsoring. Think of it as the first domino. Until that first domino falls, nothing else in the process can move forward. No National Visa Center processing, no consular interview, no adjustment of status. The problem? That first domino has been stuck for far too long. Depending on which service center your case landed in, whether you're an immediate relative or in a preference category, and overall USCIS workload, People waited anywhere from 12 months to more than 24 months just to get the I-130 approved. And remember, that's before the National Visa Center, NVC, before medical exams, before security checks, before the embassy or consulate interview. So families found themselves essentially frozen at the starting line for 1 to 2 years. On top of that, service center inconsistency made things feel even worse. One center might list 10, 12 months, another 20, 24 months. People spent nights refreshing processing time pages, comparing online forums, watching other people's timelines on social media, and still had no real control or reliable prediction. Beyond just the numbers, the emotional impact has been massive. Spouses separated across continents, trying to keep a marriage alive through screens and shaky internet connections. Children growing up without one parent physically present. Elderly parents aging alone overseas, while adult children in the US feel guilty and helpless. Couples delaying having children because they don't know when they'll be in the same country. Families draining savings on repeat travel, attorney fees, and two separate households. The backlog isn't just bureaucratic, it's deeply human. Why did this happen? A mix of pandemic disruptions and office closures, staffing shortages and hiring delays, increased filing volumes as travel and consulates reopened, outdated paper-heavy workflows that simply couldn't keep up. Even as USCIS gradually recovered, the backlog didn't magically disappear. Officers were stretched thin, paper files physically moved from place to place, and requests for evidence, RFEs, often added 3, 6, or more months. Because I-130 is the gateway, every delay there pushed the whole process further out. That's why what's coming in February 2026 isn't just a cosmetic improvement. It's a long overdue attempt to fix a bottleneck that has affected millions of families. What's changing behind the scenes at USCIS? Let's talk about what's actually happening inside USCIS to make these faster timelines possible. There are three big pillars: staffing and specialization technology and digital workflow policy tools like premium processing and clearer expedite standards. 1. Staffing and specialization. The first major piece is staffing. USCIS has expanded its adjudication workforce with a specific focus on family-based petitions, including I-130s. Hundreds of additional officers have been hired and trained with one clear mandate: reduce the I-130 backlog and bring processing times down to a more stable, predictable range. But simply hiring more people isn't enough. How they're organized matters. Under the new structure, rolling out in February 2026, certain family-based workloads are being consolidated. More officers are assigned exclusively to I-130 review. Case distribution across service centers is becoming more flexible and dynamic. In practice, that means officers become true specialists in family petitions. They recognize document patterns faster. They make decisions more consistently. And USCIS can shift cases to less busy centers instead of letting one office become overwhelmed while others have capacity. The agency has also adjusted internal performance benchmarks, with management tracking how long cases sit without movement and intervening earlier when aging spikes. Importantly, this isn't presented as a temporary surge team. It's part of a longer-term staffing model designed not just to reduce the backlog once, but to prevent it from building right back up. 2. Technology and digital workflow. Even with more officers, a slow, paper-heavy system slows everything down. That's where the second major shift comes in: modernization. Historically, paper files had to be opened, scanned, and logged in, physically routed or shipped between units or centers, manually updated in systems that didn't always talk to each other. Every handoff and every manual step added friction and risk of delay. Under the newer digital workflow for I-130s, more petitions are fully integrated into USCIS's electronic systems from day one. Officers can see the entire case file in a single dashboard. Document recognition tools help with faster verification of civil documents. Supervisors can monitor which cases are aging and reassign work in real time. For you, this means fewer mystery months where nothing seems to happen. For many petitioners, another change is huge: expanded ability to respond to RFEs online instead of mailing thick packets, less risk of lost mail or scanning delays, faster re-entry of your case into active review. We'll come back to RFEs in more detail later because they're one of the biggest silent timeline killers. But before we do, let's talk about the change that's grabbing the most attention. Premium processing for certain family petitions. Premium processing for immediate relatives. For a long time, family petitioners watched employment-based applicants pay for premium processing and get decisions in 15 business days, while spouses and parents of U.S. citizens had no similar option. That's finally changing. Starting in February 2026, USCIS is expanding premium processing to include certain immediate relative I-130 petitions. That means U.S. citizens filing for their spouse, their unmarried child under 21, their parent, if the petitioner is at least 21, will have the option to request premium processing at the I-130 stage. The fee is set at $2,500. In return, USCIS guarantees a decision within 15 business days. Very important, a decision can mean approval, denial, or an RFE, request for evidence. Premium processing does not guarantee approval, it only guarantees speed. So if a case is poorly documented, inconsistent, missing key relationship evidence, it can still be denied or delayed by an RFE even under premium. But for well-prepared petitions, this is a huge shift. Instead of waiting 12, 18 months, families could get that first crucial approval in about 3 weeks. That means if your spouse is abroad, the case can move to NVC almost immediately. If your relative is adjusting status inside the US, your I-485 isn't left hanging for a year, waiting on the I-130. Now, premium processing does not speed up NVC's own timeline, does not force embassies to schedule interviews faster, does not override security checks or medical exam requirements, but cutting 12 to 18 months off the front end can shift overall reunification by a year or more, especially for immediate relatives who are not subject to annual visa caps. For families dealing with severe medical issues, mental health strain from separation, military deployment, time-sensitive work, or study commitments, that time difference can be life-changing. Is premium processing right for everyone? No. You'll want to think about your financial situation. Can you afford $2,500? How long standard processing is currently taking for your category? Whether your case is already close to approval, whether your category is subject to long visa bulletin backlogs, we'll talk about that soon. But for many immediate relatives of U.S. citizens, this will be the first time they have any real control over how long the I-130 part of the journey takes. RFEs, the silent time killers, and how the new system helps. Even with more staff and faster systems, RFEs have always been one of the most painful sources of delay. Under the old system, an RFE could arrive months after filing, take weeks just to be delivered and opened, require significant time to gather documents, then sit in another queue for months after you responded. A single RFE could easily add 3 or 6 months or more. Starting in February 2026, USCIS is trying to reduce both how often RFEs are issued and how long they delay your case when they are necessary. Key changes: clearer, category-specific instructions up front. Spousal cases are told more precisely what proves a bona fide marriage. Parent-child cases get clearer guidance on birth, legitimation, and prior marriage documentation. Petitioners know from the beginning what strong evidence looks like. More targeted RFEs. Instead of generic, "Please send more relationship evidence," officers are encouraged to specify exactly what's missing: a missing divorce decree, an unclear translation, incomplete financial information, online RFE responses. In more I-130 cases, you'll be able to upload your response through your USCIS account. No printing, no courier delays, no waiting for scanning. Your response can enter review much faster. But this also creates a new reality. Fast systems punish weak filings. If you send minimal relationship proof, sloppy or inconsistent information, documents that don't match names, dates, or prior records, the system will reach a decision point faster. but that decision might be RFE or denial. So if you want to benefit from these faster timelines, your petition needs to be stronger up front. We'll cover a practical checklist later in this script. For now, let's move to another important tool in urgent cases: expedited processing. Expedited processing for humanitarian and urgent cases. Even with premium processing available for some categories and faster standard processing overall, there will always be situations where waiting months is not realistic. Historically, expedite requests felt confusing, inconsistent, and unpredictable. You'd hear stories of someone being expedited for hardship that seemed minor, while another family with severe issues was denied. Starting in February 2026, USCIS is working to make expedite criteria for family-based petitions more transparent, documentation-driven, and consistent. Situations that may now receive more structured attention include serious medical conditions affecting either the petitioner or beneficiary, especially where delay worsens the condition. U.S. military families facing deployment or relocation cases involving minor children separated from parents with clear evidence of hardship, documented threats to personal safety, or very unstable conditions affecting the beneficiary. What's not changing is that expedites are never guaranteed. They remain discretionary. But what is changing is the clarity of what kind of evidence is persuasive, e.g., detailed medical letters, deployment orders, police reports, etc., the expectation that similar cases are treated more similarly across different service centers. Also, remember, expedite requests can work alongside premium processing. Premium can speed the I-130 decision. Expedite can be requested later for NVC or consular stages if hardship continues. So, strategy becomes, how do you use all these tools together for your specific situation? To answer that, we need to look at real-world timelines. New timelines. Old system versus new with and without premium. Let's put some numbers on this. Immediate relatives, spouses, parents, unmarried children, 21 of U.S. citizens. Old structure, typical ranges. I-130 approval, 12 to 24 months NVC processing, plus interview scheduling, 9-15 months, depending on country, document readiness, and consulate. Total, 21 to 39 months, often 2+ years. New structure, projected standard processing. I-130 approval, 6 to 9 months, NVC, plus interview, 6 or 9 months for most countries. Total, roughly 12 to 18 months with premium processing for eligible immediate relatives. I-130 approval, 15 business days, or 3 weeks. NVC plus interview, still 6 to 9 months. Total, around 7 to 12 months for many cases. For an immediate relative, this can mean going from a 2-3 year separation to a timeline closer to 1 year, sometimes under a year if everything else moves smoothly. Family preference categories, F1, F2A, F2B, F3, F4. For these categories, the I-130 is only part of the problem. The bigger issue is the visa bulletin and annual visa caps. Under the old system, I-130 approvals often took 18 to 24 months. Visa bulletin backlogs could be 5, 10, or even more years for some categories and countries. Under the new system, I-130 approval drops to about 6 to 9 months. But visa bulletin wait times largely remain the same. So if you're in a category with a 7-year backlog, faster I-130 processing might move you 1 year closer in practice, but you still face a long overall wait. The benefit for preference categories is more about certainty that your petition is approved and your priority date is locked in flexibility. If you later naturalize and your category changes, emotional relief from not spending 2 years just wondering if the petition will be approved. Real-world examples. Let's go through a few scenarios. Example 1, Maria, U.S. citizen, sponsoring her husband in Mexico. Old structure, I-130, chaput 16 months, NVC, plus Ciudad Juarez, interview, hard 12 months, total, part in 28 months. New structure, standard, I-130, option 7 months, NVC, Pulse interview, option 12 months, total, option 19 months, almost a year saved. New structure, with premium, I-130, 15 business days, NVC plus interview, Achin 12 months. Total. Achin 14, 16 months. Example. And 2, John, green card holder, sponsoring his unmarried adult daughter in the Philippines. F2B, old structure. I, 130. 20 months visa. Bulletin. Backlog, 8 years. Total, 71291 years. New structure, I, 130, 7 months. Visa. Bulletin backlog, still, 6, 8 years. Total, 61281 years. John doesn't lose the backlog, but he gains. Earlier priority date, earlier certainty, more room to plan whether to naturalize and possibly improve the category later. Example. 3. Sarah, U.S. citizen, sponsoring her elderly, ill mother in China. Old structure. I-130, used 14 months. NVC plus interview. Structure 10, 12 months. Total, 2+ years. New structure with premium plus strong expedite. I-130, Hinyo 15 business days. NVC, potentially expedited due to medical hardship. Interview sometimes prioritized if urgency is well documented and accepted. Realistically, with approvals at each stage, Sarah might see her mother's case completed in under a year instead of more than 2. Still not guaranteed, but now structurally possible, where before it was extremely unlikely. What should you do right now? Now that we've talked about all the moving parts, let's talk about you. Your best move depends on 3 main factors: your category, immediate relative versus preference; your urgency, medical, emotional, financial, or practical hardship; your budget, whether premium processing is realistic; if you're a U.S. citizen, sponsoring an immediate relative. If you haven't filed yet, ask yourself how urgent your case is. If you can afford premium processing and it will be available in February 2026, waiting to file until you can request premium might make strategic sense. However, if your situation is already very urgent, expiring status, severe hardship, it might be wiser to file now and plan to upgrade to premium once it becomes available. If you've already filed and are pending, you'll likely benefit from faster movement as staffing and digital workflows kick in. Watch for USCIS announcements about premium processing upgrades for pending I-130s in your category. If your case has been pending a long time, paying to upgrade might turn an uncertain remaining wait into a guaranteed 15 business day answer. If you're in a preference category, F1, F2A, F2B, F3, F4, here, priority date is everything. Generally, it's better to file as soon as you reasonably can to secure an earlier place in line. Waiting months just to file in hopes of slightly faster I-130 processing later often doesn't make sense when you're facing multi-year visa bulletin backlogs. The main benefits you'll feel are shorter I-130 wait times, earlier clarity and less anxiety about whether your petition will be approved. Preparation, the most underrated advantage. No matter your category, faster systems reward prepared applicants. Before you file, make sure you have proof of the petitioner's U.S. citizenship or green card, certified copies of marriage and birth certificates, divorce decrees, or death certificates for all prior marriages, if any, for spousal cases, joint bank accounts or credit cards, leases, mortgages, or utility bills with both names, joint insurance policies, photos together over time with family and friends, travel records, boarding passes, passport stamps, screenshots or logs of communication, chat, calls, emails, common mistakes that trigger RFEs or slowdowns, incomplete forms or missing signatures, inconsistent dates between forms and supporting documents, not explaining name changes, maiden versus married, variations in spelling, very thin relationship evidence for marriages, especially if they're recent or long distance. If you're thinking about premium processing, don't rush to file a weak petition just to go premium. A fast denial or RFE is not what you're paying for. Take the time to make your first submission as strong and organized as possible. Also, start working early on next stage documents, civil documents, and police certificates for consular processing, passport renewals if expiration is close, medical exam, logistics and financial sponsorship forms if you'll be adjusting status. That way, when your I-130 is approved faster, you won't lose that time advantage scrambling for the next step. Quick Q&A. Clearing up misconceptions. Q. Will every pending I-130 suddenly be processed super fast in February 2026? A. Not overnight, but as new staff and new workflows fully kick in, pending cases should move more steadily. Some will see bigger jumps than others, depending on where they are in the queue. Q. Can I upgrade a pending I-130 to premium processing? A. For eligible immediate relatives, USCIS is expected to allow upgrades by filing a separate premium processing request and paying the fee. You'll need to follow whatever specific procedure they announce. Q. Does faster I-130 approval mean I get my green card right away? A. For immediate relatives of U.S. citizens, it can dramatically speed up the overall process because they're not subject to visa caps. For preference categories, you still have to wait for your priority date to be current in the visa bulletin. Q. Are siblings and married adult children of U.S. citizens big winners in this change? A. They'll see faster petition approvals, which is good, but their total wait time is still heavily driven by long visa bulletin backlogs. Q. Is premium processing always worth the money? A. No. It's most helpful when time apart is causing major hardship, you're an immediate relative of a U.S. citizen, and standard processing is still relatively slow. If your case is already close to approval or you're in a category with a 10-year backlog, premium may not change the big picture enough to justify the cost. The bigger picture, what this signals for family immigration. When you zoom out, the February 2026 I-130 changes signal something important. Family-based immigration, and especially the I-130 stage, is finally getting the level of operational attention it has needed for years. This is not a rewrite of immigration law, a change to visa quotas, the end of the visa bulletin, or priority dates, but it is an acknowledgement that when families use legal channels, the system should work reasonably and predictably, stabilizing I-130 processing times around 6 to 9 months and offering a 15 business day option for many immediate relatives turns the process from a vague, open-ended wait into a more plannable timeline. Families can time job transitions more confidently, plan housing and schooling with more certainty, decide whether temporary travel or relocation makes sense while they wait. For many immediate relatives, this really can feel like a turning point. If you've been putting off filing because you dreaded a 2-year I-130 wait, these changes shift that calculation. If you've been living in separate countries, counting months with no clear end in sight, the possibility of a 3-week decision on the petition can feel like finally being able to breathe. Even in preference categories where visa bulletin backlogs remain, earlier petition approval offers psychological relief and practical planning advantages. As you think about your next steps, approach this moment strategically. Know your category, understand your urgency, be realistic about your budget, and above all, prepare a complete, well-documented petition. The system may be getting faster, but preparation is still the difference between momentum and delay. If this breakdown helped clarify what the February 2026 I-130 changes could mean for your family, stay connected with us here at Move in Money. As new guidance, forms, or procedures are officially released, we'll keep walking you through them in clear, practical terms, so you're never left guessing. Share this with anyone you know who's separated from a loved one or planning to file an I-130. Especially immediate relatives of U.S. citizens who stand to benefit the most from these Move in Money. Family immigration has always required patience. Now, finally, it may also offer something it hasn't in a long time: real momentum. And for many of you watching, February 2026 may not just be another date on a calendar, it could be the beginning of the end of a very long separation.